Kate Middleton gives a heartfelt speech about the mental health of children, insisting, "This is something I really do care about."
We are all here today because we care so much about transforming the mental health of children, young people, and their families.
It's time for The Royal Drama Unfolds, Kate Middleton versus Queen Camilla. With tensions within the British monarchy continuing to rise, all eyes are on an unexpected conflict between the two most prominent figures, Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, and Queen Camilla, the Queen Consort. What began as a rather insignificant disagreement developed into a very dramatic standoff, which may change the dynamics of the royal family forever. It's also traced back to Prince Harry, who has been the source of much speculation in the involvement of this family, since his overtly complicated feelings toward the monarchy have been under a microscope for years. Kate Middleton's recent moves seem calculated and enacted in order to reposition herself within the royal pecking order. Her relationships with Queen Camilla are slowly becoming tense, which would signal problems at a deeper level. This becomes a daunting challenge for Queen Camilla amidst growing tension as Queen Consort. Camilla, long since the target of media scrutiny and public blame, places herself at the center of one of the most significant power struggles. She has waded into these treacherous waters with every move to carve out her role, ramping up the competition with Kate Middleton and highlighting the multidimensional nature of their relationship. Furthermore, the media have continuously fanned the flames of this skirmish. Sensational headlines and dramatic storytelling have increased the din of conflict and framed coverage as a winner-take-all battle for royal supremacy. As a result, this has piqued public interest, with Kate and Camilla being under greater scrutiny not only over their actions, but also over subsequent strategies and public personas. The involvement of Prince Harry further complicated things. Ongoing friction with the royals and statements he has made, very much in the public eye lately, have extended the shadow over relations between Kate and Camilla. This remarkable incident happens at a children's charity event where people were gathered to see the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton.
Kate went on to meet the experts and charity workers about the work they do. Place to Be supports 75,000 children in more than 200 schools in some of the most deprived areas of the UK.
But no one knows the evening will change into a mesmerizing moment for the entire nation. The event was filled with joy and laughter when Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, stepped outside her car. The crowd of dignitaries, journalists, and officials immediately stood in attention, their gazes fixed upon her as she gracefully made her way through the sea of faces. Her soft, elegant smile warmed the atmosphere, and though her eyes flickered to each person she greeted, she was focused, poised, and effortlessly regal. The hum of whispered conversations rose around her, the excitement palpable as she shook hands with the host of the event. Kate's attire was nothing short of impeccable, an elegant dress that complemented the gentle curves of her figure, paired with a simple but dazzling necklace that caught the light just enough to dazzle without being overbearing. She spoke softly but confidently to each individual, her voice as kind and calming as her expression. With every shake of her hand, she offered the world a glimpse of the warmth that lay beneath her public persona, gracious, yet undeniably approachable. But there was one person in the crowd who didn't greet her with applause, nor did he ask for a handshake. A quiet 6-year-old boy stood near the back of the room, blending in with the throng of adults. His small face was serious, and his eyes, wide, brown, and full of curiosity, never left the princess. He didn't clamor for attention like the others, nor did he call out. He just watched her, his gaze steady, unblinking. No one seemed to notice him, as the event was buzzing with energy, and the spotlight naturally gravitated towards the more vocal guests. As Kate approached, shaking hands with a high-ranking official, her gaze inadvertently swept over the boy. He was standing near the back of the hall, his posture rigid, his hands shoved deep into his pockets and his feet planted firmly on the ground. He didn't smile, not even when her eyes met his for a fleeting moment. Kate, as if sensing the subtle tension in his demeanor, slowed her pace just a little, giving him a gentle nod, one that spoke of acknowledgement, understanding, and kindness. The room continued its flow, the sound of heels tapping against the polished floor mixing with the hum of polite conversation. But the boy, still silent, didn't shift his attention. As the moment stretched on, the boy's face remained unchanged, serious as ever. Kate, however, seemed to read the unspoken words in his stillness. She had met children like him before, those who found it difficult to speak, those whose thoughts often bubbled beneath the surface but never made their way out in words. It wasn't until a lull in the room caused by a sudden round of applause that the young boy moved. His feet shuffled slightly as if to test the waters, unsure whether to approach or stay in the safety of the crowd. His chest rose and fell with a soft, nervous breath, but there was something in his eyes, something unspoken, that kept him tethered to her, a silent magnet drawing him in. As Kate moved toward the next group of guests, the little boy, with an uncharacteristic rush of boldness, made his way forward. His small frame pushed gently through the crowd, his gaze never wavering from her, despite the occasional whisper of someone noticing his actions. The eyes of the crowd now shifted between the boy and the princess, the quiet murmurs turning into hushed excitement as the boy edged closer. When the young boy finally stood before her, he didn't speak. His hands were still stuffed into his pockets, his face as serious as ever. But there was something about the way he stood there, his posture slightly hunched, his gaze steady, that made Kate pause. She had met many children in her time, but there was a quiet intensity in his stillness that reached out to her. Without a word, Kate kneeled down to his level, offering him a warm, sincere smile. "Hello there," she said softly, her voice a whisper amid the rising noise of the crowd. Boy's eyes flickered toward her, but he didn't respond. He didn't smile back, didn't speak. Instead, he just stood there, watching her intently. His gaze was slightly harder than it should have been for a child his age, but Kate knew better than to rush him. She had seen this before, the guarded, uncertain look of a child who wasn't sure how to open up or how to trust. And so she waited, as if letting the silence itself be part of the exchange. Kate's hand hovered just inches from his, her fingers delicate but inviting, offering a moment of contact without forcing it. She didn't push for a response. She didn't try to coax him into talking or smiling. She simply remained there, eye to eye with him, her expression full of kindness and patience, silently showing him that it was okay to be quiet, okay to be unsure. The room, growing more excited by the second, began to buzz with louder conversations, and people started to whisper more openly about the interaction. A few whistled, some even clapped lightly, delighted by the scene unfolding before them. But through all of that, the boy remained silent, a slight frown still pulling at the corners of his lips. Kate remained kneeling before him, her gaze never wavering, her expression soft. She didn't rush him. She didn't push him to smile or speak or change anything about his demeanor. She simply held space for him, a quiet, reassuring presence amidst the noise of the world. And still, little one didn't respond, not in the way she might have hoped. But something passed between them in that silence. Something real, something honest. A small moment in time when the Princess of Wales met the gaze of a child who, in his own way, was telling her more than words ever could. As Kate kneeled before him, her heart instinctively softened at the sight of the little boy standing so still, his eyes fixed on her, but his small face betraying a silent heaviness. Her voice was gentle, like a warm breeze. "How are you?" she asked, her words carrying more than just a simple question. It was a question laced with compassion, an invitation for him to share whatever it was that weighed on his heart. The moment the words left her lips, the boy's tough exterior seemed to crack. His face, which had been so serious moments before, trembled ever so slightly. The tiniest quiver ran through his bottom lip, and Kate watched, her breath catching in her chest. Her heart ached as she saw the boy, so young yet so burdened, struggling to hold back the wave of emotion that threatened to spill over. And then it happened. Child's lip quivered, and his eyes, wide with uncertainty, filled with tears. Kate's eyes widened in shock and tenderness. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't known what was hidden beneath his silent gaze. She immediately reached out, her arms opening instinctively, pulling him into a gentle embrace. Her touch was soft but steady, the warmth of her arms enveloping him like a safe haven. She felt the slight tremor in his small body as he melted into her, his fragile frame shaking with a grief too big for his tiny body to hold. She held him tighter, her hands moving to gently pat his back, offering him a sense of stability, a reminder that it was okay to feel this way, that it was okay to let go. As she felt the warmth of his tears on her skin, Kate's heart broke. She could feel his sadness, deep, raw, and inexplicable. The tears weren't just the result of a fleeting moment. They were a reflection of something deeper, something Kate could sense but couldn't fully understand. She whispered softly into his ear, her voice barely audible above the noise of the surrounding crowd. "It's okay," she murmured, her words carrying the weight of an unspoken promise. "You're not alone." The little boy's sobs came in tiny, choked bursts. His tiny body trembled as the grief inside him poured out, and Kate's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She gently rocked him back and forth, feeling the weight of his sorrow in the slow, rhythmic movements. She didn't try to hurry him, and didn't push him to stop crying. She simply stayed there, holding him close, letting him feel the comfort of her presence and the softness of her touch. His cries were quiet, but there was an intensity in them that told Kate this wasn't just a child's sadness. It was something deeper, something that had been building inside him for a long time. After a few moments, the young boy pulled back slightly, his small hands pressing against her shoulders as he looked up at her. His eyes were red, swollen from the tears, but the sadness that filled them was even more telling. There was a loneliness in them that struck Kate to her core. His tiny face was flushed with emotion, his expression filled with grief. And for a moment, Kate could see his vulnerability. He was so lost in his own sadness, in a world that felt too big and overwhelming for him. His tears had stopped, but his pain remained, raw and open in the soft vulnerability of his young face. Kate gently cupped his tear-streaked face in her hands, brushing her thumbs across his wet cheeks to remove the last of his tears. She could feel his tiny hands still clinging to her, holding on to her as if she were the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Her heart swelled with both love and sadness, and she bent closer to him, her voice soothing and tender. "You're not alone," she whispered again, her words flowing like a quiet promise. "You don't have to carry this on your own." The boy's grip tightened around her hand, his little fingers curling into her palm. He didn't say anything, but his silence spoke volumes. There was a comfort in his touch, in the way he held her hand so tightly, as though he were afraid to let go. Kate understood. She understood the quiet longing in his eyes, the silent plea for someone to be there, to listen, to care. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The crowd had gone back to their own conversations, but to Kate, the world had narrowed down to just her and this little boy, his head resting against her shoulder. The warmth of his small body pressed against hers, and Kate continued to stroke his back, whispering softly in his ear, her voice the only constant in the midst of everything else. Slowly, the boy's body relaxed. His sobs had stopped, and the tremble in his small frame began to ease. He was exhausted, his little face still wet from the tears, but there was a softness in his features now, a stillness that hadn't been there before. As he leaned into her, his breath evened out, and Kate felt his tiny body go limp with the weight of his emotions being released. Kate smiled softly, her heart filling with a quiet sense of peace. She continued to hold him, her arms never once leaving the safety of his fragile form. As his head rested against her shoulder, Kate whispered, "It's okay now, little one. You can rest." And for the first time that evening, Kate could feel his heart slowing, his tiny sobs fading into the quiet of the moment. As Kate held the little boy gently in her arms, The little boy could feel the warmth of her embrace, like a soft blanket wrapping around him. It was different from anything he had known, a kindness, a tenderness that seemed to reach deep into his heart, soothing the ache that had been there for so long. His tiny body, still trembling with the weight of his emotions, slowly relaxed against her. There was a comfort in her presence, something safe and steady, like the calm after a storm. His tears had stopped, but her touch continued to work its quiet magic, giving him a sense of peace that he had never felt before. For the first time, the loneliness that had been etched on his face softened, and though his eyes were still red, there was a flicker of hope that hadn't been there when he first stood before her. The crowd, which had once been buzzing with excitement and noise, had fallen into a hushed silence. Every eye in the room was on Kate and the boy, their moment of quiet connection becoming the centerpiece of the event. The people watched, some with hands over their mouths, others with tears in their own eyes, as they saw the warmth of Kate's kindness unfold. She wasn't just the Princess of Wales in that moment. She was a mother, a woman offering love and comfort to a child who needed it more than anyone could have imagined. The quiet room seemed to breathe with them as they stood there, a small world within a world. The photographers who had been eagerly snapping shots just moments before now found themselves captivated by the intimate scene before them, as though they had forgotten to capture the deeper beauty of the moment. For all their cameras and lenses, they were too caught in the raw emotion to focus on the task at hand. As Kate gently wiped away the last tear from the little boy's cheek, her hand lingering on his small face, she could feel him starting to calm, the heaviness lifting little by little. His tiny fingers, still clutching her hand, squeezed tighter. It was as though he didn't want to let go, not of her, and not of this feeling of safety that she had given him. It was a grip that spoke volumes, a silent promise that he wasn't ready to face the world alone anymore. A charity volunteer who had been watching from the side walked quietly over to Kate, her face filled with compassion. She leaned in and softly spoke, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "Your Highness," she said, "this little boy, he's lost both of his parents. He's been through so much." Kate looked up at the volunteer, her expression softening with understanding. She nodded, her heart aching for the boy in her arms. "I know his pain," she replied quietly, her voice filled with a gentle sadness. There was no need for more words, as if in that moment, she and the child shared a bond that went deeper than anyone could comprehend. The volunteer, with a look of awe and admiration in her eyes, whispered, "You're so brave." Her voice was thick with emotion, but Kate simply smiled warmly in response, her attention still focused entirely on little boy, who was now resting his head against her shoulder, his breath slow and steady. In that quiet corner of the room, the event had turned into something more than just a public appearance. It had become a moment of healing. Kate wasn't just performing royal duties, she was offering something priceless, her time, her comfort, and her love. In a world that often felt too big and too fast for someone like this boy, she had made it small and safe again. As the room watched, they saw not just the Princess of Wales, but a human being, showing tenderness and strength in equal measure. They saw a mother's embrace, the kind of love that transcends titles and expectations. And in that moment, the air seemed to hold its breath, as if the world itself was bearing witness to the quiet power of empathy and care. Little boy, for the first time in what seemed like forever, felt peace. The quiet connection between him and Kate had given him a space to simply be, to let his heart catch up with his emotions. His shoulders, once tense with grief, slowly relaxed. The tightness in his chest began to loosen, and though his heart was still healing, he no longer felt alone. The warmth of Kate's touch, the strength of her presence, gave him a glimmer of a brighter future, one where love and kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. And as they stood there together, the boy firmly holding her hand, the crowd continued to watch, their hearts touched by the beauty of the moment. It was a moment of raw humanity, a fleeting yet unforgettable display of tenderness that would be remembered long after the event was over. But even in the midst of such a powerful scene, the photographers missed the most important shot. Lost in the quiet beauty of it all, they failed to capture the essence of the moment. The moment when Kate Middleton, with nothing more than a soft touch and a compassionate heart, gave a grieving child a piece of hope. Kate kneeled down in front of James, her eyes soft and filled with understanding. She could see the sadness that lingered in his young eyes, the weight of loss pressing down on him in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. But as she looked at him, she saw strength he might not yet recognize in himself. Gently, she took his small hand in hers and whispered, "You are so strong and you are so brave. I know it doesn't always feel like it, but you are." Her voice was steady, filled with warmth, and her words were not just comforting, but motivating. She wanted him to believe it, to hold on to the truth that there was power in his heart, even in the quietest moments. The people around them watched at a respectful distance, their eyes filled with admiration and respect for the quiet, powerful exchange. There was something beautiful in the way Kate was interacting with the child, something that transcended the formality of the event and spoke to the core of humanity. A charity volunteer who had been observing the scene came closer and spoke softly to Kate. "Her Royal Highness," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "This boy, his name is James. He lost both of his parents, and he doesn't speak much. But today you've given him something no one else could. Hope. You've given him hope to live confidently." Kate nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. She squeezed James's hand, offering him a silent promise that he wasn't alone, and gently stood up, guiding him to walk with her. As she moved, the crowd parted ways, quietly giving them space. The moment felt sacred, as if the world had paused to honor the quiet bond between the princess and the boy. James, with his hand firmly in Kate's, began to feel the care and love she was offering him. There was no rush, no pressure, just the steady, warm presence of someone who cared deeply. For Kate, there was an overwhelming sense of responsibility. As a mother and as a person, she felt a deep love for all children, but there was something uniquely special about James. In his eyes, she saw the quiet strength she had just spoken about, the same strength she was determined to help him realize. That moment, small as it seemed, held immense power. For James, it would never be forgotten. The touch of a hand, the kind words, the time given to simply be present, these small gestures of kindness had made a world of difference in his life. And as he walked beside Kate, he knew that even in the hardest times, there would always be people who cared. It was a lesson that would stay with him forever.
Harry's ghostwriter for his memoir released an essay about what it was like to work with Harry.
Prince Harry has long been at loggerheads with the royals, and he continues to go out of his way to make things even worse. His public statements pointing out what is wrong and high-profile departures from royal duties have served to strain family bonds and have affected the ongoing conflict between Kate and Camilla in profound ways. It started with Prince Harry leaving the royals. He stepped back from official duties and made public critiques against the traditional protocols and expectations set out for royals. In so doing, he keeps other members of his family, including Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla, further under the magnifying glass. More importantly, their different positions and responses to Harry's choices became absolutely pivotal in understanding the root causes of the family discord. Harry's public disclosures of his experiences and disgruntlements with the way things really were have added a new layer of complexity to the royal drama. If Harry has painted a picture of dysfunction and discontent with the monarchy, how have its activities and strategies been framed for those deeply invested in it? Answers to this question say much about the underlying tensions that drive the ongoing clash between Kate and Camilla. Besides that, there is also the mighty media, which has been defining Harry's role in family conflict. The sensational way he quit and gave interviews has kept him in the media, constantly being termed as a symbol of rebellion against the conventions of the monarchy.
Royals, Prince Harry wants a way-in from the cold. Apparently, according to reports, he's been contacting friends.
This usurps the way Kate and Camilla have been projected and further complicates their interactions, along with the wider royal narrative. How does this very intriguing public fascination with this dispute shape their views regarding the monarchy's future? More importantly, though, this continued coverage really serves to point out the very simple fact that it is the media that have turned the royal drama into a seemingly high-stakes game. Each development promises a different plot in the story, with angles that were lost in the build-up. With every new angle, the audience keeps updating itself about recent events. Depiction of Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla's conflict is gauged through the level of media attention, along with a shifting tide of public opinion. The non-stop news coverage causes the narrative to shift with every headline. The fluidity of the news coverage is indicative of the ever-altering context within which the people's interest in regard to the monarchy is framed. Arguably, the royal feud has grown beyond just a family squabble to an international event. The role media has played, as well as the public response it drives, makes the feud between Harry and William material for more sweeping implications on how people view the monarchy and its future. And so, all eyes shall remain on any excruciating bend and twist this high-profile disagreement takes. Diverging public opinion. Kate as a beacon of modernization versus Camilla's resilience. Public opinion strongly dichotomized over Kate Middleton being a beacon of modernization, with Queen Camilla representing resilience. The media frenzy fueled all speculation continuously. As this royal saga continues to unfold, these divergent perceptions provide some context in the way the public interprets both of their roles and character traits. On one hand, Kate Middleton often represents modernization inside the British monarchy. Her image as Princess of Wales is another mark with modernity, in tune with the most contemporary feelings.
Buckingham Palace has just released a new photo and update about Catherine, the Princess of Wales.
Supporters see this in her as a progressive force that brings freshness and accessibility to the stuffy, arcane nature of royal duty. Her work on such intense issues places her at the same time in stride with today's social interests and has branded her as very progressive, yet relatable. How do these modernizing efforts shape public view of Kate amidst the continuous royal drama? Queen Camilla, meanwhile, is seen as strong in the face of adversity. The journey that has taken her into the heart of the royal family has been marred by personal and public tests, shaping her persona as steadfast and unwavering. Indeed, the test of whether Camilla can navigate the rough waters of royal life with grace can bring her credit from those who value her commitment to her role. This is viewed as testimony to her strength and devotion in opposition to the modernization efforts espoused by Kate. How does this resilient Camilla figure into the public's view of her role within the monarchy? Conversely, this polarized view of the two women reflects broader themes in the tradition versus progress debate within the monarchy. Where Kate is celebrated as a figure of contemporary traditions within the royal family, Camilla is seen as representing practices and values that are more in line with time-honored norms. This only furthers the dichotomy in terms of how each woman is received by her public, depending on whether she captured the zeitgeist and was more contemporary, or somehow continued in the vein of tradition toward public sentiment. The debate is ongoing, indicating the difficulty of this evolving picture for the public of the royal family and the many tributaries that go into such constructions. In all, the divergent public opinions about Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla reflect the greater themes of modernization and resilience within the monarchy. As these opposing stories continue to evolve, so does public interest. An interest as multidimensional as the lives of royals, wherein the dynamics of popularity are in constant flux. The long-term impact. How the rift could shape the future of the monarchy. If the royal rift between Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla grabs headlines,
Camilla brought 20 Parker Bowleses to the coronation. There were 4 Middletons. And in that moment, it was absolutely noticeable to those people who'd been excluded from the coronation that nobody, let alone Kate, curtsied to Queen Camilla.
Its possible long-term effect on the British monarchy cannot be underestimated. The very personal, almost ceaseless battle between these two popular leading ladies has debated fury regarding how such internal wars might influence the future trajectory of the royal family. But this current divide between Kate and Camilla has the power to infect not only their personal positions, but even the very face and inner workings of the monarchy. This is because both women symbolize different parts of the royal family. One, Kate, with its modernizing force; the other, Camilla, with its resilient conservatism. In view of this, the conflict between them speaks of deeper issues within the institution itself. This rift therefore heralds questions about how the monarchy will adapt to changing public expectations and internal pressures for change. Might this rift actually serve to cajole the monarchy into further rethinking its method of navigating tradition and modernization? Beyond this, the implications of this conflict extend to the institutional level. There are wider institutional implications in that, if this leaves it with such open divisions, then it will be difficult for it to present a united front. This continuous dispute could nurture discussions on the relevance and effectiveness of the monarchy in serving society in the modern world. For instance, is the royal family expected to recalibrate roles and responsibilities in such a way that allows them to understand and take into consideration public sentiments and expectations? Reform or adjustment may be highlighted more and more, depending on how the rupture continues to affect cohesion and public perception. The media's portrayal of the rift has helped to shape public opinion about the future of the monarchy. Sensationalist headlines and mixed messages fuel public discussion, potentially influencing how the monarchy will be viewed in the UK and abroad.
But almost half of those asked who are from ethnic minority backgrounds believe the royal family has a problem with race and diversity.
How does continued media coverage of internal royal disputes impact the monarchy's ability to foster a positive public perception? The question, then, is how the media magnifies and plays out such disagreements, which could raise reputational issues for the monarchy and impact on the monarchy's ability to carry out its role effectively. This emerging fault line might also impact on succession planning and the roles of developing royals. It is in these stormy waters that the monarchy is trying to plot its course, and this requires the dynamics between established figures like Kate and Camilla to have a bearing on the preparation and positioning of future generations that may join the ranks. This encompasses how future generations of royals are being groomed to play their roles and meet public expectations. As events unfold further, the royal family edges closer to a crucial milestone in the history. How Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla will iron out their differences, or how such differences may ossify, may have a determining role in how the monarchy will fare in the future. This rift underlines a need for a strategic approach toward managing internal conflict and public relations if this monarchy is to be assured of its relevance and stability in the years ahead. If this royal rift really will have long-term effects, then it will go way beyond the personal disputes of the actors. It poses an enormous question for the monarchy on how it must balance the scales between tradition and modernity in the face of internal and external pressures. How the reconciliation of this conflict may be defined, or how it shall be managed, could actually define the future shape of the British royal family. That concludes our in-depth look into the deep crack that has appeared between Kate Middleton and Queen Camilla. We hope you enjoyed learning about this royal face-off as much as we did. How do you think this high-stakes battle will affect the future of the monarchy? Share your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications on our latest videos. Thanks for watching.